Well, hey friends, good evening on my end. The lighting may not be the best on this video. I'm sorry, I've got some light bulbs out. It's evening, but I wanted to bring you along for this video. Have you ever been looking at a recipe and thought, ooh, I want to try that, but you don't have all the ingredients? Do you know how to make your own or how to switch it up and make the recipe your own with what ingredients you have on hand? Well, that is something I do all the time. So I was looking at a recipe and I don't have any Italian sausage on hand. But what I did find in my freezer was some pork and some hamburger. And I decided I'm trying to free up the freezer anyway, which we may be putting some back in there. But anyway, I decided rather than using all pork or all beef in this recipe, I'm going to use up these last 2 pounds of the pork that I have and the last 2 pounds of this higher fat 80-20 beef that I had gotten from the store. And I'm going to use those up and we're going to make our very own Italian sausage. Now, I have made breakfast sausage many times. I'm pretty sure I even have at least one video of making it with turkey meat before. And I thought, why not go ahead and turn on the camera, bring my friends along, and teach you how you can also make Italian sausage on the fly at home. Now, I will let you know I'm not going to be cooking with this tonight, but I will be in the very near future. I was inspired by this recipe online from Spend with Pennies. I'm going to go a little bit rogue with what seasonings I have here in the house, and I'm going to make it work for my needs. I'm super excited to bring you along. So let's turn the camera down and let's get to work. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do after having gathered all my ingredients, obviously we're going to want nice clean hands. So make sure you go to the sink and wash them really good because we're going to be using those to mix with. I also am going to go ahead and stick out just a few measuring utensils. I've got my adjustable teaspoon, my adjustable tablespoon. And then next, I'm just going to open the meat. And this is a very high fat beef. I don't usually like cooking with it. My husband likes, there's a few recipes he likes it with. He hasn't used it in a while. It was in the freezer. Like I said, we just took our cow in to be processed. So I've only got a short amount of time before that freezer needs cleaned out. So I'm going to try to kind of shuffle things around and make some more of what we will need because we will be getting plenty of hamburger meat. So we've got our 2 pounds. Now, the original recipe calls for just 1 pound of beef or turkey or pork or, whatever meat or meat alternative that you want to use. But I'm going to go ahead and use these up because, like I said, I want to get these out of the freezer. And we just don't use ground pork. We don't. I had it and it's been in the freezer for a bit now and it's time to get it used up. So I decided to go ahead and maybe even stretch it out a little further by using that hamburger that I wanted. And I just really like a pork beef blend with sausages. So that's what we're going to do today. But you choose what meat you want. So after you've got your meat, then you need some parsley. And I think I have a couple actually different containers of parsley I'm wanting to use up. That's another thing. You've got to stick with your spices. I've got like a little bit of this and a little bit of that in several different ones. And so I'm just wanting to get some stuff used up. Here's the parsley. Let's see. It calls for every pound of meat, you're going to need 1 teaspoon of parsley. Well, that's 4 tablespoons. So, that's 4 teaspoons. So there's a tablespoon and a teaspoon. That's just right at that. So there we go. That's exciting. Now this container got used up. I guess it was oregano that I have a couple containers of. Okay, so we used all our parsley. Yay! And then the next thing they want is a teaspoon of paprika. So I am choosing to use a smoked paprika today. I just like the flavor. So for every pound of that, you will need 1 teaspoon of paprika. Since I have this little tear tab here, we'll go ahead and do this 4 times. I like doing this with my spices so that I can get a nice leveled off scoop. That's just a little tip that from me to you that we like to do here in our family, is just to tear that off. And this one isn't even quite flat, so kind of needs to be folded under so it makes it a little flatter. And that way you get a nice even scoop. So we've got that. Oh, we need some salt. They said kosher salt, which I couldn't find my pink Himalayan sea salt. I don't know where it went. It was right here. I usually keep it right here on the counter, about right where you're standing, and I couldn't find it. So we're just going to use regular salt today, and it's going to be okay. So a half a teaspoon times 4 would be 2 teaspoons. So a half a teaspoon per pound of meat. Okay. All normal ingredients most of you have. And the next thing is oregano. And this is something else I'm wanting to use up. So I've got just a little bit in here. And for every 1 pound, you'll need a half of a teaspoon. So I need 2 teaspoons of oregano. And that's really about what we had here. So there we go, another empty container. Now, you don't have to throw these away. These glass ones that I have, I do save those and refill those from bulk. And these, you could do the same thing. So if you grew your own oregano, you have a bottle that you can refill with. Now, the next one is something that you might not all have, and that is fennel seeds. So this isn't something I cook with very often at all. I really don't know much about it. My container is pretty full, so obviously I haven't used it very much at all. So we need, for every 1 pound, I need a half a teaspoon of fennel seeds. So we're going to need 2 teaspoons today. And this tablespoon measuring spoon will go to the 2 teaspoon mark. So I'll just put that in there. There we go. Ooh, it does smell lovely though, almost licorice-like. And then the next thing was garlic powder. But I decided instead of using garlic powder, I've got some of this crushed peppercorn and garlic rub that's also good for putting inside ground meat. So this is what we're going to use. Instead of just plain garlic and just plain pepper, I am going to use the garlic pepper. So we need a half a teaspoon of the garlic and 1/8 of a teaspoon of the black pepper. So let's start with the garlic measurement. So that would be 2 teaspoons for me. So a half a teaspoon per pound. And then about 1/4 of a teaspoon would be equivalent to the pepper. So you need 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper times 4 would be a half a teaspoon. So 1/8 of a teaspoon if you're doing separate ingredients, okay? And then the next ingredient was thyme. And I can't believe it, but I'm out of time. How am I out of time? But marjoram is very similar. It's a little sweeter and not quite as tangy as thyme, but it is very similar, and it is one of those ingredients that if you need to swap out in recipes, you absolutely can. So this is something I was talking about earlier on how you can learn to just use what you have. Okay, and it calls for 1/8 of a teaspoon. So take that times 4, and that's going to be a half a teaspoon. I almost forgot the rosemary. Whoops. I do not see rosemary out on the counter. So I will have to get some, and it needs to be crushed rosemary, and I don't know that I have any. But what I do have is some Italian seasoning that I want to get used up. So I'm going to dump that in there. And that was probably maybe a fourth of a teaspoon. Like I said, I've got another empty jar now. And I meant to use the rest of the seasoned salt instead of my regular salt, so I'm really sad I didn't do that. I also want to add in some crushed red pepper. This is what really kind of makes it that Italian, spicy Italian. Now, you're going to put this into your flavor profile. How spicy of an Italian do you want? So I'm going to put a half a teaspoon for all 4 pounds. So that would be equivalent of an eighth of a teaspoon per pound. Now, my husband would like it spicier. I think I've hit the limit here on what I'm going to enjoy. And because I didn't have the rosemary, we used the Italian seasoning. We have pretty well swapped everything out. So guys, now is the part where it's like a kid in Play-Doh. You just get in there with your hands and you just mix it all up. And I'm just kind of tossing and mixing and squishing. This honestly is the best way to mix meat. Like when I do a meatloaf or anything like that, this is the way that I do it. Because if you try to do this with a spoon, you're going to end up with like a clump of seasoning here and none here. The only way to really get in there is to get your hands or put it in a stand mixer. And you know what? We've got these nice clean hands. We're going to use them. This is also going to help me combine that pork with the beef. And I liked using the higher fat beef for this because sausage is kind of fat. We're not going to put this in any kind of a casing or anything. This is going to be used for ground sausage for recipes in that way. And so we'll be able to strain off any of that fat. But the fat and sausage, it just kind of makes that flavor just kind of stick in there in the meat. And we're going to want that. We're going to need that until it's time to cook. I hope that makes some sense to all of you. So now that I feel that I've kind of got this really mixed in well, I'll kind of pull this off my hands and I'm going to press this down. And remember, we started with 4 pounds of meat. Most recipes are going to call for maybe a pound. We like to get 1 pound packages of things. This is just going to be an approximate. Okay, so I'm going to kind of shape this out so I have it so that when we go to package this, it'll be a little bit easier because my hands are nice and dirty right now, you might say. So if I shape it, it's going to be a little bit easier to grab and put in the bags or whatever container you decide to use. So I've got my 4 approximate 1 pound. We're not going to weigh these out today. I don't feel that's necessary when I'm just using it to cook for meals for my family. So it's going to be an approximate for me. Now I'm going to go to the sink and I'm going to wash my hands really well. I've got myself some freezer bags. So now I'm going to take these and I'm going to grab 4 of them since we have 4 pounds of meat. If I haven't already mentioned it, I've had a bit of a cold. So if it's a little harder to hear me or if I'm having some moments where I sound like I'm out of breath, guys, I'm okay. I'm just dealing with this cold and, just kind of in the recovery phase here. So I happen to have the slider bags. I just got these at the Dollar Tree. It says you get 15. It was supposed to be special because normally you get 12 for $1.25. I think it was still $1.25 at that time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put beef/pork Italian sausage. Now, if I knew that I was not going to be using these right away, I would put these in a vacuum seal bag. But because I know I want to use it right away, I'm just going to go ahead and put it in this because it is upstairs where I am. And I am a little winded and a little tired, and I don't feel like doing the stairs right now. So this is how this is going to happen. And if I were going to store it for more than, it's about 2 months cooked, 3 months uncooked, I would suggest putting a date on it, but not going to worry about it today. So now I will take my sausage and see, because I had already kind of put it in here. I'd already put it in that lump. Oops. No, I was right the first time. It fell into the bag so much easier than just kind of, it'll get everywhere, it seems. And I hate that when it gets on the outside of the bag. That just kind of grosses me out. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird like that. I think this one's a little smaller, so I'm going to take a little off that one. I'm trying to use one hand to open with and another hand that's touching the meat. Okay. And this is at the point where if we wanted to, which I don't have my scale. I don't know what I did with my scale. Okay, here we go. If we wanted to at this point, we actually could get precise, and I think my scale is broken, so it's not going to matter anyway. Ha. Oh, well, it says 0. 1 pound, 15.5 ounces. That's, no. That can't be right. There's just over 1 pound. There's just over 1 pound. Yeah, this one's too much. Maybe I didn't need to add that little bit after all. And that's just right under 1 pound. Take a pinch. Take a pinch. We reached our pound yet? Not quite. Take a pinch. And I'll keep doing this. Here I said I wasn't going to worry about it. And it hit me. I had to do it. I had to worry about it. Okay, so they are all very close to a pound. Seems a little obvious to me that the 1 pound packages I got from the store were not fully 1 pound of meat. Now, were they? That's a little disheartening. I gotta go wash my hands. I'll be back. Okay, now these are the kind that have like the flat bottoms. They're the stand-up kind, so they're really easy to kind of flatten. To put this into the freezer like this. So I'm going to just take 3 of them, try to get as much air as I possibly can out of them, and they're going to go straight back to the freezer. And then I have one here that I didn't put beef and pork on. I just put Italian sausage. So that's the one I'm going to put in the refrigerator. So these 3 I'm going to stack and I'm going to put back in the freezer. And then as they thaw, they will do what they need to do to grab that flavor. If I wanted to, absolutely, I could leave them in the refrigerator overnight like I'm going to this pound and then put them in the freezer, or cook them and then put them in the freezer after they cooked. But I know that as they thaw, they will take on those flavors, because I've done this with breakfast sausage so many times. And then that way I know the meat got right back into the freezer and it's going to stay safer. So into the freezer, this can go uncooked meat for about 3 months. And then this can go in the refrigerator for about 2 days. Well, folks, I was able to squeeze those 3 pounds into the freezer that's in my refrigerator. So I'm still calling it a win, because it's the deep freeze that I'm trying to get cleaned out. And I feel like it was a success for freeing the freezer. If you haven't followed along with that, go over to Pike Creek Farm. My friend Renee has been going through her freezer and inspires the rest of us to do the same. I want to not run to the store every time I need 1 or 2 ingredients. I want to learn to make my own, use what I have, and learn how to alter the recipes in a most delicious way. Guys, I hope this inspired you to make your own Italian sausage. And if you have before and you had different ingredients, different amounts, or did it exactly the same, I want to know in the comments below. Let's get a conversation started because I'm new to the Italian sausage and I'd love to learn more. Bye for now, friends. We will see you next time right here on the farm.